All right. The most important thing you can possibly do for your business is figure out what is the model that this business is going to be built off of. When we say model, we essentially mean growth strategy, right? What is the strategy behind how we structure what we do, why we do it, and how we get people in the door so that we can get as many people in the door for the lowest cost to make the most money and keep them coming back so that we actually have a business that grows month over month versus crossing our fingers and hoping that things just happen. And so I'm going to walk you through the essentials. Basically, what is the model that gets people coming back and makes you the most money per patient for your practice so that it actually grows. This is also something that gives you predictability as well as consistency behind what happens on a month to month basis. And the beauty behind it, if you ever want to sell your business, this is going to be the piece that allows you to sell it for the highest multiple possible. And so I'm going to walk through what is it that brings them back? What's the difference in the lifetime value? What is the difference in how much you are going to make by having this model in place versus not having this model in place? I'm going to walk you through pricing yourself as well as expansion, right? So how do you expand from one suite of products and services to the next, from one location to the next? So if you're opening your business, you're expanding your business, or you are restructuring your business, this is going to be the most important thing that you can keep top of mind as you go through that process. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we shall kick this guy off. All right. The growth model. So building a sustainable growth model with repeat patients. Repeat patients is a very, very, very important part of your business because if you don't get patients coming back, you are starting from scratch month over month. And this is why this is important. Let me see where to get my face out of here. There we go. So your goal for your entire business is, can I get somebody in the door for the lowest cost possible and make the most amount of money from that person over time? Which means we have to answer the question, how do we get patients to come back? And I'll give you the scenarios most people go through and what's good and what's bad about it. Most people will have the standard of, you came in for your first visit, whether it was off a promotion, whether it was from a referral, doesn't matter what it was. If this was their first visit, you should at the very, very least book them in for their next visit. Knowing that the services that you provide is not a one-time service and they're done forever, you should always have the next step in place, whether or not they are committing to purchasing whatever you tried to present on that visit, right? If you present them a package and they're like, I'm not sure, let me think about it, no worries. Why don't we just get your next session on the books? And that way, when that time comes, just let me know if that still works for you and we can make sure that you're progressing over time. That is your last resort, right? If they don't buy your packages, if they don't buy a full series, if they don't buy a membership, the last thing you want to do is make sure that you at the very least have the next visit scheduled so that you have something on the books getting these patients back. The next thing is going to be your packages, right? When somebody comes in for Botox, for example, and they want to look younger, you should be presenting them a suite of services that accomplishes looking younger. And you should ideally give them the option of, this is what's going to get you the results the fastest so that you can actually accomplish what you're looking for. Packages are good. It is most practices' first priority, right? Most packages is, let's get somebody in the door and then sell them the biggest thing. And they try to do that for everybody. I'm going to walk you through why that is not the best idea, because when you sell a package, you're selling an end result. And when somebody buys a package, many of them might finance it. And by the time they get to the end of that package, they feel like they have accomplished what they came to do, which means they will typically not buy the next step as easily, right? And the next step for you is going to be memberships. Your biggest goal for everything you do in your practice, if you want to have the most predictable and consistent model that you can have for your business, memberships is the thing that allows that to happen. It is the one thing that you are in control of to say, okay, I have somebody who's committed on a month-to-month basis to transact with me every month, and I get to see them every month so that A, I can sell them new things, and B, you have consistent cash flow coming in. Memberships is the best thing you can have for long-term growth, and it opens the opportunity to then sell your packages when people are ready, right? If you sell a package first, it's harder to sell a membership second. If you sell a membership first, it's easier to sell a package second. And that's the way you want to look at things. What is the natural ascension and plan and process that is going to allow me to maximize everything I can do for these patients in the practice? And so I'm going to show you what is the structure that allows you to have a membership that accommodates most people so that you can have the highest percentage of those first time patients signing up for it and coming back. You'll typically have a low tier, right? A low tier is typically going to be somewhere between $99 to $199 a month, right? This is gives you accessibility to capture the masses who's not ready to commit to something much higher. And I'll show you what these tiers breakdown actually looks like, right? Um, and then you have your higher tiers, right? Your higher tiers are progress over time that a patient can get in your membership. And it is typically going to be your core offer that you want most of your patients to enroll into. And that could be typically somewhere between $200 to $400 a month. And it creates that loyalty that you're looking for. It creates that I can't go elsewhere and I don't want to sign up for another promotion because I already have a membership with you guys. Patients think of you when they're ready to book again. I think it was, maybe it's on the next slide. Nope, not on the next slide. Ideal Image used to have a $20 a year membership just so that when a patient gets to the point of, I think I want to get this treatment and I see this other promotion, it clicks in their head that, wait a second, I'm a member somewhere else. Let me go get the savings there because I already know that place. I trust that place. I like that place. And I get the savings that I was going to go for anyways. Right. So they just have that, not so they can make all the money in the world off of $20 a year, but so that they can capture all of the people that are considering where to go next, stops them in their tracks, brings them back to their practice. Let me just show you the difference of what you're leaving on the table if you don't have a membership. This one is massive. Somebody who is a regular patient who you just leave it up to them to come back whenever they feel like they need to, you'll typically see them about 3 times a year, and your average lifetime value, the average revenue that you're going to make from that person is about $1,200. When you get somebody on a membership that's around $250 a month, you're going to make $3,000 or more just off the memberships from that patient. This becomes really, really cool when you realize you also see that patient 12 times, which also means that is the absolute floor of what you're going to make from that patient. You will be selling other things, upgrades, other services. Somebody's going to have a wedding coming up in 2 months where they realize, you know what? Let's jam pack this next 4 weeks with these other 3 services together and let me pay for it and upgrade and buy the package while I'm on my membership. Typically, what you make from a membership, you will make about 2 to 3 times more just because you see that patient more often. And what this really, really does for you in your practice, it allows you to be able to afford investing in your growth because you know you're going to make way more from this patient over time than you are going to make on just that first visit. To give you an example, Starbucks spends $500 to $600 to acquire one customer because they know that every customer they get into Starbucks, they're going to average $18,000 over the lifetime of that customer. Imagine that for a second. You're willing to spend $500 to sell a $7 cup of coffee. And you're like, this is a great business. This is $1 billion business because we're going to make so much more from this person when they come back later. That is the business model that allows you to explode, capture the market, and have an asset that is compounding over time and an asset that will sell for 3 to 4 to 5 times more than it would sell if you didn't have memberships. It is absolutely massive. On our side, we sell a $250 a month membership. I don't care if I pay $200, $300, $400, $500 to get somebody on a membership because I know we're going to make $3,000 or more from that patient just in the first year. We have some practices, their average revenue on the top 10% of their patients over the last 3 years is $30,000 or more. That's how powerful that is. That $30,000 or more for just your top 10% of patients, That will buy you the next 400 patients for free, essentially, right? You take that cash flow, you reinvest and say, you know what? I'm going to buy the next 80% of these people that's going to come back month over month. That is how you want to look at your business. Not what can I make on the first visit, but what can I make over time with this patient? And as long as you are structured to make that happen and you don't just sit back and cross your fingers and say, well, they came in for the promotion, hopefully they come back later for something else. You should have a process and a plan and a structure that makes that happen for you. And when you do, this is the numbers that you get to look at, and these are the things you get to plan and project behind. Let me tell you why patients don't come in on a first visit and just buy the biggest package that you want to sell, right? This is why we want to take it in pieces. Um, if you've ever done marketing, you're going to realize, man, these people, they come in for these discounts and promotions, but they don't just easily buy my packages. Like, I want better quality patients. Quality patients comes from how much they trust you, how much they trust your results, and how much certainty they have that those results are going to be the results that they're looking for themselves. And when somebody is looking at a promotion and it says, hey, come in and get this microneedling for $99, right? They're going to look at that and say, this looks like it gets close to my goals, right? It's going to solve skin tone, texture, it's going to accomplish, reduce pores, but I don't know how much reduction in pores. I don't know if this is actually going to be noticeable. I don't know if this is actually going to work for me myself because I've had other problems in the past. And so they're going to more than likely take a risk on a promotion to pay a discount than they will take that risk paying full price. So like those quality patients you're looking for, they're not going to come in on a gamble and say, you know what, I'm a qualified patient. Let me pay $600 at full price for this thing. They're going to chase the discount because if they are wrong, then at least they lost $100 instead of $600. That is why people sign up for promotions. It is an easy next step. It is an easy way for them to get started to find out, what am I actually going to see behind this? Do I even like the person that I'm walking into? When I have over 100 options around me and I can go anywhere, am I sure I want to commit to this practice over the other practice? There are so many things other than prices that keeps people from sticking and going elsewhere and signing up for things. And when you realize that, that's when you realize why it makes so much sense that people sign up for promotions and discounts to save money so that if they are wrong, at least they didn't lose the whole slot. Your promotions is the first step, right? When you give something and say, hey, save this money and take this gamble on us because I'm telling you this is going to accomplish this thing, that allows you to start building that trust, show them what you can do, get them in the practice, make sure they like you, make sure they trust you, see what you've done for other people. And then when you present to them the packages or memberships or the series and actually show them what's behind it, they will now have the conviction behind what they see in the results to actually take the next step. And if they don't have that conviction, I promise you it's not going to sell anything. We had a practice, she was like, Victor, people just aren't buying our packages. And I told her, hey, go ahead and record your consult with this patient or with your next couple of patients, and let me just see like what's happening on the inside. And so she had a patient and she was talking about, the patient came in for tox or maybe it was microneedling, and she was talking about the packages that she had. She was like, for these other things, like, adding peels and adding your facials often and getting 3 series of this and getting 3 more series of microneedlings, like that's really going to help you accomplish your goal. And they're like, oh, well, what is that going to look like? What is that going to do for me? And she goes, well, it's going to help. And they're like, okay, well, how much is it? That's like $2,200. Nobody's going to pay $2,200 for something that's like, it's kind of going to help you. Help you is like, it's not something most people, when they have a goal, they're not like, I just want it to like help a little bit. When people have a goal, they have a serious problem and they want a serious solution that they have confidence in before they actually part ways with their dollars. And so conviction and results is massive in this space specifically because there's so many promises. Nobody actually knows where to go, what to get. And so they will take smaller risks on promotions than anything else until they walk into practice and you give them that confidence and conviction that you know what you're talking about, you know what they need, and then they're ready to take the next step. And so if you are building your business from scratch, this is essential to understand because those quality patients you're looking for, they don't exist until they are educated and they have the conviction behind what they do. And when you're doing promotions, you can either do one-on-one promotions, say, hey, save some money here, come in and we're going to handle the rest. We're going to show you what we can do and give you that confidence that we can actually help you. Or you can do what we like to do, which is host group demos, right? Group demos, small events for new patients so that we're not actually selling a treatment, but we're selling the education, right? The education and experience. Patients sign up so much more for those things because it answers those questions. Answers well, I don't know you, so let me come into this event and see what you guys are all about. I don't know which treatment I need for my specific problem, so let me come in and see all the treatments that you do before I take any other step, right? Then they get educated, and then you can sell them your, next tier, biggest things, whatever you have from there. But those are the two paths, right? So that you can accomplish the goal of building that trust and getting them to the next step. I want you to think about this model. How does this play out when you are actually putting a strategy together to acquire patients, right? To acquire clients into your practice? You have to answer the question of what is the smallest step? What is the smallest service that I can give somebody to allow them to step into my world and show them what I can do, right? You're not going to make a killing when you're promoting discounts on these things, which is why you want to have a small service that's not going to eat into your margins, but is going to start the path for this patient to take the next step, get upgrades, look at bigger packages, and then eventually and ideally start on a membership, right? And so when we push anything, we'll give one microneedling treatment, we'll give one tox treatment, and then we'll come in and we'll say, hey, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to add filler? Do you want to add a lip flip? Do you want to pay for more things to get a better result with this one thing you came in for? And then patients say, yes, we make more money, we cover our marketing, cover our labor, we cover our product, and then we have patients for free that we didn't go in our pockets for, and now we have memberships and packages that we can present to them, right? And so that is the ascension, right? That is the process these patients go through to accomplish the building of trust and conviction they need to take each step one step at a time. No, I promise you, no patient, unless they already know you or have done their research, is going to come to you and say, I want to buy this package you guys have, and here's $2,000. It doesn't happen because they don't know what they need. So you have to give them a small step to get them in the door and then show them what they need. And then you can present to them an aggressive plan, which is going to be your packages, or you can present them a progressive plan that's going to give them results over time, which is going to be your membership. Now, let me tell you, because when you're putting these things together and you're like, well, I need the best treatments, and I need the best services and the best equipment. If you're starting, do me a favor. This is going to be the tiers and the stages that you want to buy services, equipment, and products. If you are getting started off, you need just the core essentials to start treating somebody on the skincare anti-aging side, right? Or whatever your industry is. You have to have something that is the core essentials, the starter pack. You don't have to have the next biggest, fanciest machine when you get started because you need patients coming in that's going to be able to buy the first easiest thing and then eventually buy your biggest thing. But if you spend all your money on the biggest thing, you're not going to have money to get people for the easy things, right? So when you're starting, you're entry level, you're expanding a new location, you're like, what treatments should we provide when we get started? You want to put your money behind the core essentials. In the aesthetic space, you have your facials, your peels, your Botox, your filler, your microneedling, your dermaplaning. You can get any FDA approved pen for $20 to $30 a tip. Like your consumables behind these things are the biggest things that's going to allow you to actually afford buying these customers. And that's why we want just the essentials. We don't want any big equipment, any expensive products. You want to find the essentials that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg per treatment so that you actually have margins behind what you make on these services. And that margin goes to feed your family, feed your marketing, and buy your next customers, right? So low consumable cost is where you want to start. It allows you to invest more in your marketing. And then you have your middle tier. Once you start having patients come in and you're like, hey, this is actually working. We are giving away POs and talks and things at different types of promotions. People are consistently signing up. We're calling them, we're booking them in, and we're starting to cash flow. What can we bring in that allows us to sell more things at higher prices? Once you have that consistency, now you can get your RF microneedling, you can get your hydrofacial machines, you can get your premium branded equipment, right? You can get your skin pens and all the stuff that costs you $100 in consumables, because now you have patients that are coming in buying something smaller and you can sell them upgrades into the bigger things, right? And you only want to purchase these when you have consistency behind bringing patients in the door. And what that's going to allow you to do is either A, sell more packages, but also B, sell your memberships. Because when you buy your big machines, you want to make sure, you want to make damn sure you have consistent patients coming in, because those repeat patients are going to be the ones that buy your $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 things all at once, right? When we have 100 people on a membership and we see them month over month, we're going to get about 20% of them to say, hey, you know what? That big laser machine, here's $2,000. I'm ready for it, because they know us, they like us, they trust us, they're already making progress. And those are the patients that's going to finance the purchase of that equipment, right? And so you buy big machines after you have a patient base, after the revenue you make from them is already covering your other things, because now you can sell everything to a list of patients and they're going to buy. And you don't need to spend the capital up front. When we do events, we can have an event, we can have a group demo behind a machine before we actually purchase the machine, and we can have 30, 40, 50 people pre-sold, cash collected, and then we can make that deposit. Or we can just pay off the machine within 6 months of their no payment terms, right? And so um, it's very important to keep in mind. 80% of your patients, your new patients, are not going to buy your highest priced services first, because they don't know. They don't know you. They don't trust you. They don't trust the treatments yet. They're still in the process of getting educated and warmed up. That's why this is so important. Um, and this is a very big mistake that we see very, very, very often, too often, which is you think if you buy the machine, you're going to get the patients, right? That is the wrong order. You first get the patients, then you upgrade your equipment as your demand grows. This building that's over here to my right, I don't know what freaking machine they have, right? So them having a machine like does nothing for me as a consumer. You're not going to just buy a machine and all of a sudden the whole city's going to be like, that person has this machine and I know what it does and I know how it solves my problem and I know it's for me and I like the results. Let me go find them and buy from them, right? Even if the machine is a brand name and people are searching on the website, they still don't have the conviction that that is actually what they need. And so machines is always going to be your last purchase. Please, please, please do yourself a favor. Don't go $100,000 in debt before you have any foundation of patience in your business. It will be the biggest thing that restricts your growth. And it is the biggest thing that puts, when we get a client coming in and they're like, Victor, oh my gosh, I have 30 days to make this work. It's usually because they took on way too much overhead. And machines is a big, big part of that. It'll double, triple what they're paying for rent and their employees because they just got all the fancy stuff first. And then they come to us, they're like, I have like $10 to invest in my marketing. Wrong order, right? Spend $100,000 in your marketing, get 1,000 patients in the door, and then you can buy whatever the heck you want. Very important to understand. I'm going to give you a quick rule of thumb on your pricing. How do you price yourself in the market? You always want to, there's no benefit of being the middle priced person, right? You just seed yourself in the middle of competition. Most people go a little bit above, a little bit below the average. I want you to look at what you do and price yourself on the highest side of the market. If microneedling in your area ranges from $200 to $400, price yourself at the $400 mark. If Botox ranges from $9 to $14, price yourself at the $14 mark. This allows you room to actually give a promotion to the market that is attractive enough for people to say, hey, I save more in this promotion with this person than I do at the other place, because you can give more value when you are priced higher, right? Somebody that is priced 40% higher than you, 20% higher than you, they can give a 40% off. You can only give 20% off of any type of promotion. And the marketplace is always going to look at what is the difference of the thing I'm buying? Like, how much am I getting with this thing? If I can save $400 here versus $20 there, even if I'm going to spend more at the other place, I'm getting more value for what I'm buying. Pricing also does a lot of other things psychologically. It just tells people, A, this place is premium, right? Like they have high prices because they're qualified, they have better equipment, they know what they're doing, they're educated, they have experience. And lower prices typically signals they're buying at discounts, they're probably not paying their staff as much, and I don't know how much I like or trust this, right? And you as the business, when you make more money, you can serve your patients better because you can buy the better things. You can invest in your marketing more, you can reach more people. You always want to price higher because you can always discount. But if you're on the average of your market, you can't just say, this week only we're upping our price, $200 and we're going to let you save $100. Like it doesn't work that way. And so always price yourself on the higher side. And like I said, at $9 a unit, 20% off, you can only go down to $7.20. You have limited room to promote. At $14 a unit, you can go down 20% off and you're still higher than your average competition. And you can go as much as 40% off and you're still higher than your competition, but the market is going to respond to 40% more than they're going to respond to 20%, right? People buy the gap, right, of the value that they get versus the price they pay. So if I was normally $9 and I'm going to get you down to $7, somebody else who's at $14, even if their price is higher, this gap is bigger. You're going to get a lot more people responding to your promotions and your marketing and what you do when you are able to give a bigger spread between the two. That is absolutely massive. And is this lastly? Almost lastly, your biggest thing, you are no longer an employee. You have to understand this. Like these things you just learned is absolutely crucial. You should invest in everything with expected returns. Like your knowledge, your education, where you got burned one place is something that is giving you the knowledge and experience to not get burned again in the future. Your investment into learning how to do certain things, your investment of time into these types of videos with us in our community is something that is giving you a return as long as you register it and you act upon it. You are no longer an employee where you can just cross your fingers and say, I'm going to walk in my business and everybody's going to do everything for me and I'm just going to get to treat patients. Everything you do requires some type of strategy behind it. It is not just, I threw it out there because I figured that's what everybody else is doing. When you do that, you get what everybody else does, and like 90% of this industry is going bankrupt. I promise you. I talk to more practices than I ever thought I would. And so you can't just post on Instagram and like expect results. And you are now 100% about your patients. It is no longer what you deserve. When you work for a job and you're like, hey, I deserve this because I've been putting in the time and I've been putting in the work, sure, you can deserve a promotion and a little pay raise. When you open a business, your patients don't give a lick about what you deserve. They only care about what's in it for them. And if you are structured to give them the best outcome possible, like we just went through, you will have more patients than you know what to do with. But you don't go and say, well, I'm not going to give any incentive or promotion to the marketplace, Victor, because I'm super awesome. But I'm going bankrupt because I don't have any patients. But I'm super awesome, so like just brand me and like I'm going to invest tiny bits of dollars here and there. It doesn't work that way. Your patients that you want to come into your practice, they have 100 other options to choose from. And they're all just as awesome as you are. They all went to the same education, they all have the same licenses, they all have a medical director, they all have very similar treatments. And so you have to be structured for your patients. That's what allows you to capture the market and think clearly about what's actually going to make a difference. And then lastly, your decisions should be always, always based on data and not feelings. Data first. I don't care if you feel like something's not working. If you look at the numbers and it tells you it's working, you're profitable, you're making money behind it, you step on the gas. I don't care if you feel like you are supposed to be branded and so you want to change everything because you're not branded enough. If those things you're wanting to change is driving you money, you don't change it unless what you're changing it to is going to make you more money. But usually, when people say I'm branded and super awesome, and I feel like I'm just discounting myself or I'm just, you know, not presenting myself as the superstar, they change things. They're like, no more discounts, no more promotions. We're just going to say we're awesome. And then guess what happens? Nobody gives a shit. And they don't respond to your promotions anymore. They don't get on the phone. They don't walk through your doors. And then you sit there going through this cycle of, well, how do I just get what I deserve? It's not about what you deserve. It's not about your feelings. It's about the data, what your patients want. When you understand that, I promise you have so much more of an edge than anybody else around you. And then you have to track these metrics. Without data, you're operating on feelings, and that is a broken model. And so when you do anything in your practice, you're going to put something in the marketplace. People are going to respond. You're going to get on the phone. You're going to book them in. And then they're going to come in. You're going to make some money off of them. And you need to track every single thing you do. You need to track the percentage of leads that get on the phone. Of those that get on the phone, what percentage book appointments? You should be at about 80%, by the way. You should also be at about 30% of your total leads on the phone. What percentage of people show up to the practice when they are booked in? Most people are typically around anywhere between 40 to 60% if they're not taking a deposit. You should be 70% or higher with a deposit in place. If you want to get it to 90%, then you add a deposit plus a cancellation fee. This is how detailed you should understand your business. This is how intimate. I can tell you all those numbers. You can tell me what percentage your show up is, and I know exactly what the problem is. This is your business. Now you should know what it is too, right? And then what percentage of people buy your packages? What percentage of people join your memberships? Once you know all that, you can put a system behind it to make it happen every single time. And you'll also know what to focus on. I'll show you another video how to fix all those problems. But these are things that you should know. Because the reality is, it doesn't take you 2 years when you start a business to be profitable or 2 years when you open a new location to get profitable. It just takes the right strategy. And the reason why 2 years is the average is because most people who survive 2 years only do so because they learned the strategy by the second year. You get to learn it right now. That's the difference. And so here's a checklist for you on pricing, services, model, and mindset. Make sure you have this in place for yourself. This is everything behind a successful practice, right? How do I get them in the door? How do I make more money off of them? How do I keep them coming back? When I have a membership, how do I structure it? That's in another video as well, by the way, but have a plan, right? Your promotion and somebody walking through the door, that first visit is the starting point. That is not like, ooh, people came in, they didn't buy anything, like this is over. It's no, you didn't even start yet. Right? It's kind of like in sales, like your sales process doesn't start until somebody says no. Most people think the sale is over when it says no. So you got to understand like how do these things work together. I promise you everything you just learned right now is something that 90% of other practices in your area haven't given a single ounce of thought behind it. And they have no structure behind it. This is your structure. This is the model that compounds. This is the process that allows you to actually scale, make money, grow, compound, and not get derailed by any amount of competition, right? And so digest it. We'll see you in the next video so you can have the next pieces to make the most of your practice. We'll talk about how to get patients in the door and a bunch of really awesome stuff. So I will see you on the next one, and kudos.